Hey Deckers, it's time for the most played Steam Deck games for August. Check out the stats on the SDG Companion App if you like the ones that are being shown during the video, and all footage is captured on a Steam Deck OLED so you can see real world performance and the stats provided from Steam themselves every month. Let us know in the comments below what your most played game was and if it's in this list. Let's kick things off then at number 20 with Helldivers 2 making a re-entry into the top 20. Enlist in the Helldivers and join the fight for freedom across a hostile galaxy in a fast, frantic and ferocious third-person shooter. How you deliver liberty is your choice. You'll have access to a wide array of explosive firepower, life-saving armor and battle-changing stratagems, the jewel in every Helldivers arsenal. Definitely playable as you can see here, but expect only around 30 to 40 frames per second when the hordes start closing in, and also when you get into the later stages 30 frames per second can be a little bit more difficult, but let us know what level you're running at. At number 19 we have Hades, the original version, dropping 9 places. As the immortal prince of the underworld, you'll wield the powers and mythic weapons of Olympus to break free from the clutches of the god of the dead himself, while growing stronger and unraveling more of the story with each unique escape attempt. Running at a solid 120 frames per second on an external screen, or 90 on the OLED and 60 on the LCD, only pushing around 15 watts, giving it a good 3 to 6 hours gameplay depending on your device. Another re-entry into the chart at number 18 with Fallout 4. As the sole survivor of Vault 111, you enter a world destroyed by nuclear war. Every second is a fight for survival and every choice is yours. Only you can rebuild and determine the fate of the wasteland. Do whatever you want in a massive open world with hundreds of locations, characters and quests. Depending on your settings, you can get a decent 60 frames per second with this, and with loads of built-in mods, you can see why it's regularly in the most played charts. Though it does push around 22 watts, only expect around 2 to 3 hours gameplay on the OLED and 2 at max on the LCD. Vampire Survivors clinging into the most played charts but dropping 2 places to number 17. A time survival game with minimalistic gameplay and roguelite elements. Hell is empty, the devils are here, and there's no place to run or hide. All you can do is survive as long as you can until death inevitably puts an end to your struggles. Solid 90 frames per second on the Steam Deck OLED and 60 on the LCD, and less than 8 watts usage. Expect 4 to 8 hours gameplay depending on your device. At number 16 we have Hades 2, dropping 6 places but still going strong. As the immortal princess of the underworld, you'll explore a bigger, deeper mythic world than the original, vanquishing the forces of the Titan of Time with the full might of Olympus behind you, in a sweeping story that continually unfolds through your every setback and accomplishment. Just like the original, this is running at 120 frames per second solid on external screens, 90 on the OLED or 60 on the LCD, but actually pushing less wattage, around 11 to 12 watts, meaning a good 5 to 6 hours on the OLED and 3 to 4 on the LCD. Back up 4 places to number 15 is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. As the Dragonborn, players can use powerful shouts, engage in melee, ranged or magic combat, craft gear and interact with NPCs in a dynamic world filled with dungeons, lore-driven adventures and the birth of the arrow to the knee meme. Always one to dive back into, especially as the mods are definitely keeping this one alive with pretty much high graphics at 40 to 60 frames per second, but it does push around 23 watts, meaning only around 2 to 3 hours gameplay at best. Up 4 places to number 14 is Hogwarts Legacy. Embark on a journey through familiar and new locations as you explore and discover magical beasts, customize your character, craft potions, master spellcasting, upgrade talents and become the wizard you want to be. Make allies, battle dark wizards and ultimately decide the fate of the wizarding world. Your legacy is what you make of it. Unfortunately, this has never really improved much over the last few patches, but expect 30 to 40 frames per second with pretty decent looking graphics. Unless you go into Hogwarts and around the main town, it does struggle around the 30 mark still, and pushing 22 watts, expect only 2 to 3 hours gameplay as well. Up 3 places to number 13 is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. You are Geralt of Rivia, mercenary monster slayer, and before you stands a war-torn monster-infested continent which you can explore at your will but your current contract is tracking down Ciri, the Child of Prophecy, a living weapon that can alter the shape of the world. Pretty solid 60 frames per second if you go with medium to high graphics now, even on the remastered version. It's really got better over the releases, but if you want to go super high, then 30 frames per second cap is where you'll want to be, and pushing 21 to 22 watts. Expect only 2 to 3 hours battery on the OLED and only around an hour and a half on the LCD. Slay the Spire staying in at number 12, the much easier to run title, pushing less than 7 watts, giving a good 6 to 8 hours battery on the OLED and 4 to 5 on the LCD, capped at 60 frames per second. This simple card battler offers you a randomized journey up the spire. Discover hundreds of cards to add to your deck with each attempt at climbing the spire, and select cards that work together to efficiently dispatch your foes and reach the top with the ever-changing weekly challenges. At number 11, the thorn in my side is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Sticking at number 11 this month, a randomly generated action RPG shooter with heavy roguelike elements. Following Isaac on his journey, players will find bizarre treasures that change Isaac's form, giving him superhuman abilities and enabling him to fight off droves of mysterious creatures, discover secrets, and fight his way to safety. Always in the monthly charts because it's pushing less than 7 watts, giving around 8 hours gameplay on the OLED and 4 to 5 on the LCD. Also capped at 60 frames per second, but with the randomness of the generation, it's hit and miss how long you can survive. Today's sponsor is the latest additions to the UGREEN MagFlow series with the latest Key 2 chargers. First up is the latest wireless power bank, which is sporting a max power of 30 watts with a 25 watt Key 2 wireless charger, as well as a USB-C integrated cable that also acts as a handle, and an extra USB-C out as well, also capable of 30 watts. This does mount and charge at the max rate with a bit of careful addition, even with a case on a device. And we also have the latest in the travel desktop chargers, also with an upgrade with a max power output of 35 watts, allowing you to dock your phone, connect a USB-C cable or a watch charger, as well as charging the AirPods with that Key 2 max on the 25 watts for the phone, 5 watts for the USB-C out, and 5 watts for AirPods. Check out the links in the description below to pick these up from Amazon or the UGREEN website, and enjoy an extra 34% off with the early bird deal running between the 5th and the 12th of September. Dropping 3 spots and just about staying in the top 10 at number 10 is Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan and the Vandalin gang are outlaws on the run, with federal agents and bounty hunters tracking them down. The gang must rob, steal, and fight their way across the rugged heartland of America in order to survive. Arguably one of the best looking games you can play on the Steam Deck, and only expect around 30 to 40 frames per second. Not that huge frames per second will make much difference in this one, especially as you will be stopping all the time to look at the environment. Don't fiddle with the VRAM though, as that will cause issues around water, and even with the lower frame rate, this is pushing over 23 watts, meaning only around 2 hours gameplay on the OLED and an hour to an hour and a half at best on the Steam Deck LCD, so make sure you have that power handy. Rocketing back into the charts at number 9 is No Man's Sky with its Voyagers update. In No Man's Sky, every star is the light of a distant sun, each orbited by planets filled with life, and you can go to any single one of them. Fly smoothly from space to planetary surfaces with no loading screens and no limits. In the infinitely procedurally generated universe, you'll discover places and creatures that no other players have seen before. Constant free updates on this one is always a surprise, and the Voyagers update is absolutely massive, so I can see why so many people have dived back into this one, and it looks absolutely gorgeous on the Steam Deck and is running even better than ever. I have a full guide on this one, but as you can see, we are actually getting over 60 frames per second with the default settings, and it's looking crystal clear, and around 20 watts usage, giving around 3 hours gameplay on the OLED and around an hour and a half to 2 hours on the LCD. At number 8, dropping 2 places, we have Elden Ring. Embark on a perilous journey to become the Elden Lord by exploring vast landscapes, battling powerful foes, and uncovering deep lore set in the mysterious lands between, ruled by the demigods. There's not been much optimization over the releases from this one, so it continues to be a pretty much 30 to 40 frames per second experience, although it does look very good for doing that, but it also does push around 22 watts, so you expect only 2 to 3 hours battery life at best on the Steam Deck OLED and an hour and a half on the LCD. Brotato's up one spot at number 7, another simple to run title on the Steam Deck. A spaceship from Potato World crashes into an alien planet. The sole survivor, Brotato, is the only potato capable of handling 6 weapons at a time. While he's waiting to be rescued by his mates, he must survive in this hostile environment for as long as possible. Simple wave shooter, easily pushing 120 frames per second on external devices, so 90 on the OLED and 60 on the LCD, and just over 7 watts, meaning a good 6 to 8 hours battery on the OLED and around 4 to 5 on the LCD. Dropping another 2 places to number 6, the ever faithful Baldur's Gate 3. Caught in a conflict between devils, deities, and sinister otherworldly forces, you'll determine the fate of the Forgotten Realms as the corruption inside you grows, as well as your power and the ability to run this game. Acts 1 and 2 are absolutely fine, but Act 3 does give us some troublesome areas around the main town, though when we do go into instance areas, 30 to 40 frames per second is perfectly fine, but it does push around 23 watts, so a couple of hours gameplay on the OLED at best, and around an hour to an hour and a half on the LCD. Another one to keep that power handy. Balatro is slowly slipping down the charts, dropping in 3 more places to number 5. Blending classic poker mechanics with strategic roguelike elements, making each run unique and unpredictable. Earn enough chips to beat devious blinds, all while uncovering hidden bonus hands and decks as you progress. Only around 8 watts usage on this, which is why it sticks up high in the charts very often, as it's not a high FPS experience, so capping this at even 30 can extend your battery life to around 10 hours. At number 4, dropping 1 spot, is Cyberpunk 2077. Still looking and running absolutely gorgeous with the immense free update outside of Dogtown, and actually running a little bit better than before in Dogtown as well, but definitely not as high as we would like it to be. Play as V, a mercenary in Night City who comes into possession of a biochip containing the consciousness of Johnny Silverhand, a legendary rocker and terrorist, sending you on a crazy adventure fueled by your own survival before your consciousness is erased. Overall still performing fantastically well outside of Dogtown, which is the DLC area for Phantom Liberty, but it does push around 23 watts, so keep that power handy once again, as you're only going to manage around 2 hours on the OLED and about an hour to an hour and a half on the LCD. Peaks managed to climb up another 2 spots to number 3, the co-op climbing game where the slightest mistake can spell your doom. Either solo or as a group of lost nature scouts, your only hope of rescue from a mysterious island is to scale the mountain at its center. You'll need to rely on your friends to help you with any hope of scaling the mountain, which changes every day. Help each other up ledges or place ropes and climbing spikes to make the way easier for those who come after. Actually slightly more challenging to run on the Steam Deck than originally expected, but can manage up to 60 frames per second, but it does push nearly 22 watts, meaning you're only going to get around 2.5 to 3 hours gameplay on the OLED and about an hour and a half to 2 hours on the LCD. There is a shock number 1 this week though, as Stardew Valley has been pushed down to number 2. After inheriting your grandfather's old farm plot, armed with hand-me-down tools, you set out to begin your new life and learn to live off the land. Can you turn these overgrown fields into a thriving home? Cozy little game on the Steam Deck, always high up on the charts because it actually only pushes just over 6 watts, meaning around 9 to 10 hours gameplay on the OLED and around 6 hours on the LCD. Capped at 60 frames per second, it's a very stable experience. At number 1 though, we have a huge new entry for Hollow Knight. It's almost as if people are preparing for the new game that just released. Hollow Knight's a classically styled 2D action adventure across a vast interconnected world. Explore twisting caverns, ancient cities and deadly wastes. Battle tainted creatures and befriend bizarre bugs and solve ancient mysteries at the kingdom's heart. Roguelites are definitely my weakest so you can excuse the rubbish gameplay on this, but as you can see on external screens it can actually push over 250 frames per second, which actually means an extremely stable 60 on the LCD and 90 on the OLED, and when you do have that cap in place it only pushes around 15 watts, so you're going to get a good 3 to 4 hours gameplay on the LCD and 4 to 5 on the Steam Deck OLED. At the time of this video, the Hollow Knight Silksong sequel has launched and this has already reached over 500,000 concurrent players, so I more than expect to see both the Hollow Knight original and sequel of Silksong in the most played chart next month. Let us know in the comments below what you've been playing and what you're going to be playing this month. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.